Hello and welcome to Global Beehive Meet the Expert. And today we have a pleasure to introduce Gary Cokins here at the Global Beehive, one of our latest experts and someone I really admire for his work on enterprise performance management. So we're very happy to have you on board, Gary.
It's my pleasure. Thank you. It's a privilege, Hans.
Yes, thank you so much. I would like you to give, first of all, a little bit short introduction of yourself and a little bit more about your background.
Okay. Well, first, you refer to me as an expert. I don't think I'm an expert, but I don't think there's any experts on the planet Earth anymore. There's just way too many things going on that even Harvard Business School professors aren't experts. But a little bit of background on me. First, I'm 71, but I feel like I'm 41. I did my undergraduate at Cornell University in industrial engineering and operations research in 1971, and then my MBA at Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management. My career was really in, I call it 3/3. My first decade was with a large conglomerate manufacturing company in the US. And then the middle 15 years, consultant with Deloitte and KPMG, but not with Capgemini, where you were at Hans. Yes. Earlier in your career. And then 5 years ago, I retired after 16 years with SAS, SAS. It's not Scandinavian Airlines. And many people don't recognize SAS, but it's actually 15,000 employees. It's the world's largest privately owned analytics software vendor, not ERP tools. I'm Greek American, raised in Chicago. Go Cubs, go Bears. Michael Jordan, everybody knows him from the Chicago Bulls. And what I'm doing now is actually, I enjoy training and coaching other consulting firms and some clients how to implement enterprise and corporate performance management methods. And we'll talk about what some of those methods are.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you so much for that. If you would somehow summarize what enterprise performance management is in a couple of sentences, what would you say? What is the sort of purpose of this?
Well, first, there's a lot of confusion and lack of consensus of what it is. A lot of people think it's a process or a system, or it's a bunch of dashboards from a CFO. It's actually much larger than that. It's actually the integration, the seamless integration of many various methods. And some examples of the methods would be strategy map and balance scorecard with KPIs. People are familiar with Kaplan and Norton. Product, service line, channel, and customer profitability done correctly, usually using activity-based costing principles. Although ABC, its nickname, has a bad reputation. Many people think, oh, it doesn't work, it's too complex. That's because they don't know how to successfully implement it. Enterprise risk management, lean management, Six Sigma, moving from the budget to driver-based rolling financial forecast. See, all of these various methods are like gears in a machine. And what corporate performance management is the integration of them.
Yeah.
And you get even more power when you spice or embed analytics of all flavors, regression, correlation, clustering into them. But on a standalone basis, each of them is powerful. So think of corporate performance management as really a suite, S-U-I-E-T-E, a suite of many methods, but they all are integrated.
Yeah, there's a wonderful explanation about it, showing the complexity of a performance management. And when I use it, I usually try to explain it as measuring the value that the organization is creating. And it has it captures so many different dimensions of what value actually is and what is performance.
Yeah. Well, I would go beyond measuring it. It's helped creating more value. That's really its purpose. And ultimately, its purpose is really providing line managers and executives with much better information for insights and foresight to just make better decisions. Yeah. And I don't know whether I should say this now, but I'm going to get it out. One of the problems is the accountants and CFOs are in the 1960s. We got to get them into the 21st century. And because they're still using old arcane methods from their textbooks, they're denying their line managers and underserving them by not providing them the more important information and useful information and relevant information and more accurate information that they need to be making those decisions, those better decisions.
Yeah, I totally agree about the decision making. And I actually read a study from Gartner saying that when we talk about digital transformation itself, that I think half of the digital professional CEO don't have measurements for measuring the effects of their transformation itself, which is quite surprising.
Well, the same thing with strategy execution, strategy management, to be differentiated from strategy formulation. Most executives, they're pretty good at formulating the strategy. I mean, that's their job. Their job is to set direction. Their job is to answer the question, where do we want to go? But their big frustration is failure to actually execute the strategy. There's some empirical evidence on this. There's a large executive recruiting firm in Chicago that monitors the involuntary turnover of CEOs in the North America, and it is increasing every year. And the reason is board of directors post Enron are just take their governance job, not ceremonial, but more serious. And, you know, if the CEO is not executing the strategy, they're out of there. Carly Fiorini at Hewlett Packard being pretty much the poster child. You know, HP gave her a few years to implement her strategy. She didn't make it. They fired her. So, and so measuring the right things to align the behavior of the managers and employee teams with the strategy is really key. And they don't really know how to select the correct type of what are called key performance indicators.
Yeah, definitely. Something, a trend that we see here is that the digitalization has increased the unpredictability in many markets, that things are moving much faster. What do you see is the sort of impact on performance management from that perspective?
Well, one of the components of these multiple gears in the machine is forecasting. And forecasting or planning is really about, even like in a commercial company, well, what's going to be the future volume and mix by week, by month, you know, for supply chain or even in service organizations. In fact, I found an interesting observation. In the United States, only 2 out of every 10 jobs make products. The other 8 are services, a travel agency, making a travel reservation, banks, loans, and so forth. But the enterprise and corporate performance management methods are universal to anything. Those are just outputs. But forecasting, as you get better and there are more powerful tools, can increase the likelihood that the deviation, the variance between the actual forecast and then after it happens, the actual results is thinner and thinner and less. So it would mean the accuracy is pretty good. Once you've got good forecasts, because forecast to me is the major independent variable. I'm going to use some, all the other variables are dependent ones because you could have calibrated them from your historical information. So good forecasts is the key. COVID has clearly introduced much more uncertainty, but that just means you got to reforecast at more frequent intervals. And those forecasts should go out 24 to 36 months. I know that's way out there, but you shouldn't restrict them to short-term 2-3 months, although those are the more important months.
But I guess the iteration of these forecasts are more and more important, that you do it quicker. Even though you might have a broader perspective on them, that you do it every 3 or every 6 months to actually capture the latest trends or the disruptions that might occur. And I think that is somewhere the companies are challenged today, that they follow the annual strategic planning cycle and over a 12-month period, and they only do forecasting once a year rather than do it every 3 or every 6 months.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 ways to interpret your term quicker. One is more frequent intervals, and it really has to be more frequent intervals, quarterly, maybe even monthly, because there is so much volatility going on. But quicker is also how fast can you actually calculate the forecast. So if it's, it takes your organization 2 to 3 weeks to consolidate all the numbers, where you could use automation and maybe actually generate the forecast within a day or 2 because you're using algorithms and the mathematics of data science.
Yeah, that sounds really, really interesting. If you look to the future a little bit, and we talked here about increased unpredictability and different disruptions. What are your views on the future if you look 5 or 10 years ahead when it comes to enterprise performance management? What we will talk about?
Well, boy, there's a couple of answers. One, we'll get through the period we're in now, which is the slow adoption rate, because because of human nature. People, resistance to change is human nature. People like the status quo. So people are fearful to even do anything different or new. So this is a whole behavioral change management aspect. And there's all sorts of other problems. People have fear of knowing the truth, or other people's knowing the truth, or fear of being measured, or fear of being held accountable. We got to get through that. And most organizations don't have change management skills, in this area. But when I then kind of look at my crystal ball to the future, there's clearly going to be much more automation, and including artificial intelligence, robotic process automation, RPA, machine learning. That is coming sooner than most people realize. And I really encourage the guests who may be listening to me to go to YouTube and watch a 15-minute video called Humans Need Not Apply. I'll repeat that. Humans need not apply. And it will frighten you. Automation, and it's going to replace a lot of jobs. When I put my crystal ball on to what's going to be happening in the future, there'll be much more seamless integration. The large software vendors, and I'm not going to name all of them. Everyone's familiar with them. They're increasingly able to kind of integrate the software, but most of the software requires modeling. And so this is not transactional stuff like a payroll or purchasing system. I always use the term, a fool with a tool is still a fool. A fool with a tool is still a fool. Just because you've got the tool, it's not just a calculation engine, it's a modeling tool. And so there's got to be improved skills and capabilities. How do you properly model a cost management costing system, a strategy map system, a rolling financial forecast system?
Yeah, well, one interesting thing you mentioned there was about artificial intelligence and how that will increase in importance going forward. What do you think will be the important? How do you think the leadership will change if AI can do a lot of the decision making? What is the role of managers or leaders when AI can do most of their work?
Well, let me before I be specific, let me just be broader about the role of managers and leaders. This is my opinion. I think in the past, the best leaders and best executives had the best answers. Today, I do not think that is the case. Today, I think the best leaders and best executives have the best questions. There is too much volatility. There's too much complexity. There's too much uncertainty for them to basically rely on their intuition or gut feel or so-called sixth sense, or the types of answers they made younger in their career that got them promoted to the top. They need to create a culture of investigation and discovery and tolerance for making mistakes, as long as you learn from the mistakes. So it's really more of what should be the characteristics of a good leader and executive today. And I don't think it's those who said, I know the answer and we're going this way. It's like, no, get involvement, delegate, and create a culture where people are asking questions. And then we're artificial intelligence and actually business analytics, business intelligence, data science, which is evolving so quickly. That then becomes the instrument to leverage to get to those answers.
It's really, really interesting discussion there about not having the answers, but rather having the questions. I think I remember when Neil Armstrong went to the moon, and he came back and said that I don't have the answers, but I have so much more question about how things actually are in space. And I think that's probably a sign of very good leadership. If you would have the chance to give some advice to executives about how to improve performance or implement strategy or better value, as we talked before, what would be sort of 3 advice or general things that you would say to them?
Well, one of them would be have a sense of urgency. Most organizations over plan and under execute. And my whole life has always been kind of a 80-20, Pareto law. I call it ready, fire, aim. Move fast, fail fast if something's not going to work. In my consulting work, and I just do a little bit of, at my age, I don't really do large ones, but I like to do small projects. I use a technique called rapid prototyping with iterative remodeling. And just briefly, what that is you get 5 or 6 cross-functional employees in a room, and you quickly build and construct, let's say, an activity-based costing model enterprise-wide, all the way from to product, service line, channel, and customer. You build a strategy map with some executives in the room really quickly, and I have some techniques how to do that, so that by the end of the day or the next day, you can then bring in the line managers and other executives. And because it's so engaging, because you're modeling your own company, not some sort of case study from a business school. And the light bulbs go on with everybody, like, oh, that's how we could basically validate our pricing. Oh, that's how we would know which customers are more or less profitable or attractive to retain, to grow, to win back. Oh, that's how we could do benchmarking with apples and apples, not apples and oranges. It's really accelerated learning. And that's one message to the executives. Don't have projects that take 6 months forever. And in fact, you really need to do these quick development of these various models for these enterprise performance management, because ultimately the real power comes when you integrate them. That's where the synergy is. It's the seamless integration. A second advice I think I already mentioned, which is move from thinking that you know the answers and that you're so smart, and take advantage of how the intelligence and wisdom of all of your employees. So involve them, and that's where moving towards asking questions. I guess another piece of advice, and I don't have skills in this, is incentives. I think motivational theory is really key, and I'm not just talking about bonuses, but some way, how do you motivate your workforce? There's a wonderful book by Professor John Kotter, Kotter. Go to Amazon. It's called Leading Change. And what John Kotter says is there's a difference between managers and leaders. He said managers basically cope with complexity. That's why they have spreadsheets and budgets and org charts and all that. But in contrast, what leaders cope with is change, and they really have to provide inspiration and vision of where we want to go. I will share with you in my career problems I've seen when I've seen younger managers get promoted higher up. They just manage more intensely, like, let me get more spreadsheets out, and it's like, no, this is not about spreadsheets anymore. That's what you used when you were lower. You need to inspire, you need to lead, you need to give them a vision. And so that would be, I think, answering 3 of my advice for leaders today.
I mean, I think it's so interesting that when we talk about performance management, that we end up talking about leadership and people and change. That is sort of the essence of what great performance management actually is. And
well, I find each year I get older how much I underestimate the importance of behavior modification and change management. And part of the problem is many of us, and probably many who are listening to me, we are what I call Newtonians, like Isaac Newton. To us, the world is a big machine. Just give me the levers, the pulleys, the dials, and so forth. What we need to be is a little more Darwinian, like Charles Darwin, sense and respond. But the problem is, probably the majority of the people listening to me now do not have degrees in sociology or psychology. They're all in the quantitative, MBA, run it by the numbers, accountants, operations people. So this behavioral stuff is much more important than people realize.
Thank you so much, Gary. We are running out of time, and I'm so happy that you took the time to actually speak to us about this very, very important topic.
If people briefly would like to read some of my content on my website, it's www.garycokins.com, GARYC as in clock, OKINS. beehive.com. It's all free, PDF free download. I am not selling anything. I'm just basically trying to transfer the knowledge that I've had to others so they can perhaps leverage it and use it.
Yeah, we'll put it up there so people can actually access it very, very simply, because I think you have so much wonderful experience to share with this community.
Thank you. And they can invite me in LinkedIn as well.
Yes, I think you're going to have many followers there. I want to thank you so much for taking this time, and I wish you that we continue to see a lot of articles or blogs from you on the Global Beehive, and I'm very happy to have you on board. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.